Oh, brothers, let us reason together. When we talk about this crapshoot of life, the house always wins, correct? Before we get on to the topic at hand, I'd like to draw your attention to a particular MGTOW channel called MGTOW is Freedom. The guy reminds me of his laugh reminds me of Ted DiBiase, his demeanor almost like the Kevin Nash of MGTOW, if you will. We want to, there's a dichotomy, there is a duality to life. And we want to start today's program by talking about the lie versus the reality. And the number one lie that we hear when people talk about marriage, when they talk about relationships, when they talk about long-term relationships, is this idea that you won't die alone. This idea that you will not die by yourself. That gnawing at the back of your cranium, that primordial fear. People do many things out of fear. But yet, Alan Watts was once asked the question of, what is death like? And many of us have asked that question of ourselves, have we not? And yet the answer is quite obvious, isn't it? What is death like? Well, death is like before you were born. It's kind of an odd concept to think about. I was born in 1985. The Vietnam War had happened, what? A mere, 10 years before that it ended in 75. So where was I when such a historical event such as Vietnam was taking place? Or furthermore, where was I when World War II was taking place, and so on and so forth? Death is like before you were born. But yet, if you're anything like myself, I have witnessed many people die on their own. I've witnessed people die in the ditch, in the mud, in the blood. I've witnessed people die in hospice. And the commonality with all of it is that they were all alone. The idea that you're going to marry somebody and that somehow that is going to stave off death, that is going to stave off dying alone, well, it's just not realistic, is it? Because the fact of the matter is, we come into this world alone, and most likely the majority of us will leave this world alone. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee your partner will stay with you long enough to prevent dying alone. There is no guarantee that your partner won't go before you. So that is lie number one. You won't die alone if you get married. But that is not the reality. Lie number two. You will be taken care of. Men need marriage and benefit from it. Marriage and family is good for people. And is particularly good for men. This is a lie. To quote one of my ex-girlfriends, she was with a guy who couldn't do his own laundry, couldn't wash a fork. She, in her words, felt like a mother to this guy. But she wanted to be with a man. She wanted to be with a man's man, a manly man. And what was her idea of a man's man, a manly man? A man who shouldered all the burden, all the responsibility. To quote her, if she forgot to pay a bill, she knew that that man would take care of it. I never will forget sitting in marriage and family class when I was in college. And the proof was very shoddy. They threw out the statistics that men who are married live longer. That doesn't speak to anything insofar as the quality of life of that longer life. But in any event, marriage is good for guys. That was the message overall, that it is good for men. But their proof of this amounted to what reminded me of the grade school game of placing your hand over your face, and if your hand covered your face, you had cancer. I mean, it was just shoddy proof at best. none of it held up to the rigor of testing. Lie number 2, you will be taken care of. No, you will be taking care of them. That is the reality. All the shoulder of responsibility, all the bearing of the burden will be on you. Not only will you be taking care of your own problems, but you will be taking care of theirs as well. Lie number 3, Nawalt. Sure, there is the potential for any woman to possibly be a Nawalt, but within any woman, of course, is that AWOLT mentality. Sure, not every woman acts on AWOLT, but the Nawalt, the statistical preponderancy of Nawalts, the number is so infinitesimal that it may as well not exist at all. Are there Nawalts? Perhaps. By Nawalt, we don't mean women that don't have this nature, because they all have this nature, AWOLT. But by Nawalt, we mean that women that don't act on this nature vis-a-vis some religious belief or moral upbringing. The problem with the Nawalt argument is there could be a potential Nawalt, but yet the numbers are so low that who knows? And you don't know which ones are the Nawalts. You don't know which ones to trust. Lie number 3, Nawalt. Reality? Who knows? Lie number 4, equal in society. Men are clearly not equal in this society. I mean, we bear the burden of workplace deaths, suicides, combat deaths. In our litigious society, we bear the brunt of getting screwed over in family court, losing custody, losing half or more of what we own due to divorce, alimony. And clearly, there is a discrepancy in how the law treats men versus how they treat women. And one point that, and I may have brought it up in another video, but one point that I don't see bandied about too much is the whole trans bathroom issue. If you notice, the outcry is usually that we don't want these women who are actually men, so they're transgendered, so-called, hence so-called, because we, scientifically, I'm just sorry, you cannot cross the membrane, so to speak. But we cannot have these so-called transgendered women entering into our bathrooms and putting at peril our young women. Because it all goes back to the whole argument that every man, whether they're transgender, whether they're a straight male, straight white male, or whatever the case may be, every man, anybody that bears a penis and testicles, is a rapist. So therefore, cannot have these evil so-called transgender people in our bathrooms because they're going to deflower our fair young maidens. But yet the same outcry is never bandied about when it comes to the issue of trans men, so-called, and young boys. I think you can make the argument that a 5 or 6 year old boy is just as vulnerable as a 5 or 6 year old girl. But they are male, and so therefore they have no accounting. They are disposable. Yet this is a huge argument. I mean, it's in the news, it's in articles, it's, this whole trans bathroom issue. If you want to know what gender society could give a shit about, it obviously has to be men. Because the biggest issue of the day is the whole trans bathroom issue. But yet we have 22 veteran suicides a day. We have an innumerable amount of homeless veterans. And not a word spoken about that. Not a news article about it. I have never seen it on CNN, NBC, CBS, Fox News, any news outlet, period. I have not seen it in the New York Times. I have not seen it in the Los Angeles Times, or in the Houston Chronicle, or in the Knoxville News Sentinel. So, the message then is, lie number 4, equal in society. And then they beat the drums of war yet again. North Korea, Syria. Let us send more young men to lose limbs, to lose sanity, to lose families, to lose their lives. For a society that when they're done with them, when the boogeyman has been beat back, when the Huns have been stopped at Rome's gate, when the wolf growls out the door and is subdued, let us send more young men who have no futures in this country, job-wise, family-wise, home-wise. Let's send more young men to die for absolutely nothing. Just look at selective service. I mean, North Korea has women in their military. China has women in their military. And yet the United States of America, home of the free, home of the brave, it's almost laughable anymore. Because many people make the mistake of thinking that because they live in the good old US of A, that they live in a free country. And yet they do not see the changes that have taken place around them. They do not see that the reality of it is that their culture, their country, their freedoms were usurped many, many decades ago. But some very powerful people and some very in-the-know people get paid a lot of money to ensure that people do not wake up to the reality of what is going on around them. The education system is designed to keep people smart enough so that they can do the basic functions and run the machines and run the industry and the manufacturing, so on and so forth, but dumb enough that they don't ask the appropriate questions, that they don't question things. They live and we continue to sleep. The division still exists. And they cannot afford for people to begin to wake up and ask the appropriate questions. To begin to look at the world around them and to see just how really screwed up things are. And the ones who do wake up, the ones who do ask these questions, well, they end up like Jesus Christ. They end up like JFK. They end up like the multitude of others who have awoken to the matrix. So it is clear that we live in a duality. We live in a two-system society. Lies and the reality. Lies and the truth. And it is up to us to discern. And MGTOW allows you to clear the mind of your biology, clear the mind of your programming, clear the mind of your collective unconscious and cultural upbringing, and to see the truth, the naked truth, the reality, to cut through deception and to find enlightenment. I am John Nada. These continue to be the days of thunder. And remember, you are free to do as you are told.